We accepted that the lasting resolution of the impossible situation in which history and ourselves had placed us would have to be constructed on principles of justice and equity. We realized that the circumstances for successful negotiations would never again be so favorable. And we knew that with the passage of time, the balance of forces would inexorably shift against us. So, on the 2nd of February 1990, we opened the way to constitutional negotiations. We leapt through the window of opportunity that had been blown open by the winds of change from Eastern Europe. The negotiations, and we've heard a lot about that today, between 1990 and 1993 were a roller coaster ride of hard bargaining, faceless violence, walkouts and crises. Nevertheless, by December 1993, we had agreed on an interim constitution that included the supremacy of the constitution and the rule of law, an independent judiciary, multi-party democracy, the separation of powers, acknowledgement of South Africa's diversity of languages, cultures and religions, and an entrenched and justiciable Bill of Rights. It also contained the 34 immutable principles. This, ladies and gentlemen, was the greatest achievement in South Africa's long and troubled history. It was acknowledged by the whole world as one of the century's most successful and inspiring peace processes. It was not the revolutionary victory now claimed by the ANC. It was, on the contrary, a victory for all South Africans based on common interests and compromise. For the first 13 years, our new constitutional democracy functioned reasonably well. The late Nelson Mandela worked tirelessly to promote reconciliation, to promote national unity. More significantly, in 1996, the ANC jettisoned the socialistic RDP and replaced it with the much more market-orientated GEAR approach. The SACP and COSATU found themselves in the political wilderness, and the National Democratic Revolution was for the time being put on hold. South Africa reaped huge benefits. The economy grew at more than 5% between 2005 and 2007. Unemployment declined, and Trevor Manuel balanced the budget and halved the national debt to only 23% of GDP. However, President Mbeki's policies were anathema to the SACP and COSATU. They decided in 2006 at COSATU's 9th Congress to recapture the heart and soul of the ANC. They resolved that the working class must redirect the NDR towards socialism, and I quote, at the ANC's 2007 National Conference in Polokwane, a coalition of the SACP, COSATU and the ANC Youth League defeated the very surprised President Mbeki and elected Jacob Zuma as the ANC's president. What a sad day that was for South Africa. It was the most significant shift in South African politics since 1994. The victorious coalition was able to seize control of the ANC, to oust President Mbeki, and to place government policy firmly back on the road to the National Democratic Revolution and socialism. In March 2012, the new leadership announced the commencement of the so-called second phase of the National Democratic Revolution. According to Jeff Radebe, changes in the balance of forces in South Africa and globally have made it possible for the ANC to dispense with some of the cumbersome constitutional compromises on which the first transition, as they called it, was based. This approach was later defined by President Zuma as radical economic transformation, which he said would require, and I quote, a fundamental change in the structure, systems, institutions and patterns of ownership, management and control of the economy in favor of all South Africans, end of quote. Combined with the 2008 global economic crisis, the ANC's new approach resulted predictably enough in sluggish economic growth, higher unemployment, the doubling of the national debt, and the discouragement of investment. However, to the consternation of the South African Communist Party and COSATU, President Zuma turned out to be a far more wily politician than they had anticipated. While they were trying to capture the state for the National Democratic Revolution and socialism, he succeeded in capturing it for himself. In 2008, the ANC opened the floodgates of corruption. They did so by disbanding the Scorpions, an independent and highly successful corruption-fighting unit. The National Prosecuting Authority, important elements in the police and intelligence services, were soon under President Zuma's control. The country lost tens, if not hundreds of billions of rands in rampant and unrestrained corruption. Fortunately, the institutions that have been included in the Constitution were resilient enough to defeat Jacob Zuma's state capture project. A combination of resolute action by the former public protector Tuli Maronsela, investigative journalists, civil society, the courts and ANC stalwarts ultimately led to President Zuma's downfall. At the ANC's National Conference in 2017, Nkosazana Zuma, President Zuma's chosen successor as President of the ANC, was narrowly defeated by Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. Since then, President Ramaphosa has taken some significant steps to restore the integrity of key government institutions and to restructure state-owned enterprises. He has recommitted himself to the implementation of the pragmatic national development plan and to economic growth fueled by increased levels of investment. Nevertheless, doubts persist. Does President Ramaphosa have the ability and will to challenge the deeply entrenched Zumaites in the ANC's top structures? Will he be prepared to face down the trade unions by making the deep cuts in state-owned enterprises, expenditure and employment? When will those involved in state capture face prosecution? Important questions to which the country is waiting for answers. On a number of occasions in the past, I have warned that South Africa was at a crossroads. Well, now to me it is abundantly clear that the crossroads are behind us. That we took the wrong turning several years ago, and that we are now rapidly heading away from the high road of non-racial constitutional democracy. The factions that have led the ANC since 2007 have no intention of honoring the agreements that were included in the 1993 and 1996 constitutions. Instead, they believe that they are still involved in a continuing revolutionary struggle to achieve, and I quote, a fundamental change in the structures, systems, institutions, and patterns of ownership, management, and control of the economy. In July 2018, Ace Magashule emphatically rejected, and again I quote, the false view that our democratic breakthrough was in itself the end of the struggle for the liberation of our country. He said the living truth is that the democratic breakthrough was not at all the end of our revolution, but only the beginning of more protracted struggle for transformation. A refusal to accept the new constitution as the foundation and the cornerstone of the new South Africa.